Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Thursday and happy Thursday from us here at ARA, Aquarius Rising Africa 2. I hope you guys have had a wonderful week and have been enjoying yourselves. And I know Caleb has certainly been giving us a few jaw droppers over the past few weeks. So I sincerely hope you've been enjoying that. I know I certainly have. And so, welcome back, Caleb. It's really good to have you back with us. How are you?
I'm okay today. How about yourselves?
I'm good.
Good. Good.
I'm hoping
Looking
Mornay is
forward.
fine too. He looks good.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm looking forward to. Yeah, it's like I have a feeling of anticipation of like I just know this is going to be a interesting show, so I'm looking forward to it. Like all of your shows, the information
Yeah,
that you share is yeah, it's really it actually fills in some missing pieces for us since we started doing this show so many years and the path I was on as well in my life. So it's interesting. So I'm looking forward. And thank you again, Caleb, for being brave and speaking up.
indeed. And it's wonderful. We had such a cool show on Sunday, if you guys haven't seen that. And in fact, this coming Sunday, we're going to be doing a follow up on that Cabbage Patch Kids and the whole these kids that we now have learned from Caleb have been cloned at the turn of the century. So there's actually this quite a few questions on that, and especially the Cabbage Patch Kids. And there's a bit of stuff that we've seen since then. So we're going to be going a little bit deeper into that on Sunday with Caleb's show as well. So stay tuned for that. But today we're talking about, and I know again from last week and Sunday as well, there was so much that came up. So we kind of decided to start with for you just to talk to us about this AI Mecca, the living ships, Ophanum, even the cherubim, stuff like that. Caleb, there's so much questions around that right now. And I think there's just so much confusion in the world as to where we're at. And honestly, through the people I've spoken to, I know you have the answers when it comes to these sorts of things. I'm not suggesting you have each and every answer, but I know that you certainly have a lot of answers around this because you've actually experienced these things yourself. So I'm really looking forward to hear what you have to say around this whole AI mecca, because as we understand, this is really the Satan, right, taking over the world, is AI.
There's one thing we got to do first.
Absolutely. Yes, let's do that.
All right. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for another chance to be alive. We thank you for the weather, even though it's changing. Some of us it's warmer, some it's colder, but it's all coming from you. So thank you for the blessing of rain today. I thank you that I get another chance to tell a story that you've given to me to tell. And I thank you for everybody that comes in here. I ask that you protect us, keep us safe, and just give us freedom from fear and everything else that will attack us. I ask that in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Yeah, I pretty much posed my question before, so thank you for that. If you can maybe tell us what you know about what's going on with all this artificial intelligence.
Well, I'm sure everybody has noticed that AI has crept into everything you touch now. Everything. Your coffee machine has AI in it now. You kind of have to wonder what that agenda is about, why they're doing that.
Yeah. I saw actually something quite interesting that, these little vacuum cleaners that have become the latest rage, that you switch on and it runs around your house cleaning, right? when you switch it on, it connects you to some cloud in China, actually. And through that, they track all your whereabouts, know what you're doing, etc. I mean, I'm sure it must be something similar to that, right?
Yeah, in a sense, it's that way, I guess. So,
well, I mean, I think it's really gotten through, I think for us as well, if I think about myself growing up in the 80s, right, we had nothing like this. I got a TV the first time at the age of 16, right? My parents got a TV. So we had none of this. Cell phones and stuff only came in when I was somewhere in my 30s, I think, late 20s, 30s, stuff like that. But I obviously, since then, with us as the general public, it's most certainly crept in more and more. And most definitely with our kids and the younger generation of today. But I also think that these guys have had much their technology that's been available to us on this planet has been kept secret, and there's a lot more that's been going on than what we've been given privy to, right? So if we can just hear more of that from you, that'd be great.
so there's got to be some kind of background spoken of this stuff. Without jumping too far ahead of myself in terms of the storyline here,
Yeah.
I first encountered these things beginning as a child. First, I could always see spirits or angels or whatever you want to call them. Had some pretty fantastic experiences with them, not relationally, but visually. And visually, I used to get really afraid of them when I was a child because I didn't know what was happening. So how do you explain to a child of just about any age, how do you explain to an adult what they just saw, let alone a child? So that was some of my very first experiences. Later on, as I got trained into the darkness, I'll call it, I began to interact with some of these things, not the good ones, the bad ones. They all kind of look the same, other than the fact that the fallen ones are losing their light, and they generally don't appear as nice things. So I'm trying to find a starting point to get into the story.
When you say they generally don't appear as nice things, and I can understand, if I just go back to what you're saying when you were a child, you had a natural ability to see beyond the physical realm, and from what I'm understanding, it was already then that you started seeing these creatures, right?
Right.
Can I just ask you, the ones you were seeing then, were they more of the light, or were they creatures from the dark?
I couldn't really tell you because they kind of both appear the same, just like I just said.
Yeah.
Equally terrifying, let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you say your training, you furthered your training, and as as your training furthered, you were trained to engage and interact with these things. Can you tell us what training that was that enabled you to interact and engage with these things? Because again, I'm thinking this would have been your handlers, obviously recognizing how they could weaponize you, right?
Right. Up to this point, we've gotten to where they were able to categorize us in that school. I'll call it lab school because I like that term. I don't like the term, but I like the descriptiveness of it. They're able to categorize us and pick and choose what they wanted as far as our abilities. And the seers, which I don't want to categorize myself too specifically as a seer because that's not exactly what I became. The seers were kind of in one group. And with the lucid dreaming training, which is basically just astral projection or spirit travel, they developed us to, like I said, they developed us to the point where we could do it while awake. and at will. Some of us were willy-nilly with it, which means they went too far with it, so they get recycled back into whatever guidance they needed to have. And those of us that were focused with it, we were determined to see more because we knew that there was more. So I mentioned before the sandbox that they let us play in. It was just kind of a fantasy land. They call it Whimsy Land. That's the actual name they call it, Whimsy Land. So you could see things, you could do things there, but it wasn't the actual dangerous wild spirit, wild with quotes around it. So the playground as opposed to the jungle.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. Mm-hmm.
So in Whimsy Land, that's what they're looking for, is the ones who wanted to go past the gate and past the boundary, the fence.
Right. So, I mean, as you say, that's your sandbox training, and then they would have enabled you to strengthen certain spiritual muscles through which they could weaponize you. And obviously, yours was seeing these things. How did you start engaging with them? And what was your experience when you started engaging with them? How did you experience that?
Well, when I was 10 years old, I was outside doing what boys do, playing with a slingshot. Had my army men, had my trucks in the dirt, that kind of stuff. Beautiful day, sunshiny, not many clouds. Beautiful June day, actually, real close to my birthday. I remember I'm only 10, so out of nowhere, I heard a super loud voice that said my name. Not Caleb, my real name. Said my name. Scared the crap out of me because it was coming from everywhere and nowhere. And didn't know what to do, so I ran inside. Didn't experience anything beyond that at first, so nothing happened. So I went back outside after a while, doing the same thing, just doing what boys do, and heard it a second time. Super loud voice saying my name. Scared me even more. So I went inside and I asked my stepmom, who at the time is a Presbyterian, who's involved in this darkness, whether she knew it or not. And we can talk about that a different time, whether knowing it or not. Said, well, that might be your angel talking to you, she said to me. I don't know if that was a good or bad thing that she said that. I don't know, but it reassured me enough to where I could go outside, because at this point I'd already seen some pretty wild things. So went back out there and heard it a third time. I said my name, just as loud as can be, with the loudest loudspeakers you've ever heard, just echoed through the land. And I remember looking up at the sky, and I just saw the sun so bright that I had no fear of it. Whatever was calling me, I didn't have any fear of it. So that was one of my first interactions with, I believe it was good angels, or a good angel, or trying to describe what I felt as a child. I can tell you how I feel now about it, but how I felt then was very different. So,
yeah, I love hearing stories like that, because as I'm listening to it, kind of makes me think as well to some stories of some of the other survivors we've heard, and invariably they've had at some point in their abusive stage, right? Or, they've had either a strong spiritual connection with God or Jesus, or something like you're explaining now, which really is, it's wonderful, because it just seems to me, that was giving you a reminder. Wow, just some courage, some support, because at the age of 10, you were really in the thick of it already, weren't you?
yes. My stepmother told me, many are called, but few are chosen. She said, if he's calling your name, he's chosen you.
Mm.
Wow. Yeah. So, just in terms of these creatures that you were connecting with, and when you were, obviously as you were going on, being used more and more to connect with these creatures, how did you get to see all the things that you eventually ended up seeing? And again, I want to just say to our viewers as well, there's a lot of steps in between as well, and we will get there. But this is something particularly interesting I think Caleb can share with us now, just in terms of the stuff you saw. I would imagine that is also relating to a lot of the spiritual gates and stuff that are being opened at the moment and what's coming in, right?
Right. So we'll fast forward to when I'm about 28 years old. I had been inducted into the service. I'm not going to say which branch again, but inducted into the service. I had been selected in the service by, well, maybe you can explain sheep dipping, Chantel, because you know what that is.
Okay, well, what sheep dipping is in the farmer's language. Okay, that's why the first time he told me about this, I said, "What do you mean, like my dad dips his sheep?" And he said, "Probably." What it is once every few months, I don't remember exactly how long, the farmer will collect his sheep and puts them in a crawl, and he's got like a trough that is filled with water and the poison for the sheep, right? So what they do is they would then obviously get the sheep to get in there and go walk through the trough, and they help them along by their horns with a hook. I remember often doing that. I was so traumatized that the sheep were going to be upset, and they would dip them to get rid of parasites and everything on the other side, and literally on the other side, yeah, then that's them. But that would be the process of what I understand dipping to be.
So in a nutshell, you basically get painted with a different color, used in a different direction. That's kind of what happened in the service. I was selected for a different operational capacity. And I'll explain that later on, but we were sent looking for, and I've said this for artifacts that were part of the programming that they wanted us to know or to learn about. And so it's hard to just get into that because there's so much information you need to know before that happened. The selection process, all that kind of, it's really definitely a part of the story. But to get into this show's subject matter, we were sent into places where we were finding wreckage of these ships. Let's just put it that way. The wreckage of these ships was, they've known about it for a long time, since at least the 20s, maybe before then. And I'm almost certain they had some of this before then. It kind of begs the question, why did they have to send us in to get that stuff? I think it's because in the destruction of the Great Flood, they were kind of blocked off from dealing with it themselves, these spirits. They didn't have physical bodies, and they couldn't just move those parts and pieces. And the technology that was locked up in those parts and pieces was unavailable to them for some reason. I couldn't tell you why right now, but
if I just so let me just I want to just make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So what you're saying is, after the Great Floods, there was some artifacts, bits of their technology, spacecraft, whatever it might have been, right, that was left behind on Earth. Is that correct?
correct.
Okay, so now in order for them to be able to continue to do what they're doing and wreak the destruction or take over, take control, they were needing these artifacts in order to do that were left on Earth, right?
Correct. There were specific pieces of these ships and things out of these ships that we needed to collect in order to affect what's about to happen here in the next 5 to 10 years, I would say. I'm being real general on purpose because I'm not a prophet.
Okay. Wow. So this is what, and I want to just understand, and I want to just make sure I understand that correctly. So you had some really special training within your military, and I know we'll go into that at some point. And along with the training and the abuse you had as a child and your special gifts, you'd been weaponized to do these kinds of missions within the military. Is that correct?
I'd say specialized, not weaponized. Yes, that,
Specialized.
and they picked and choose who they want to go on these missions. You're not just a 300-pound gorilla with a gun. It's just knocking over walls and killing everything in sight. They wanted professional warriors that have knowledge, intellect, and ability. That's why I have a degree in psychology. It's not because I felt like I needed to have psychology. It's because they encouraged it. The guy that selected me had some very specific physical demands and very specific educational demands for all of us. And to integrate us into that team, we had to meet those expectations. So, again,
Wow.
it's open-ended, all that. There's lots of questions, I'm sure, but right now is not the time we're talking about what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does that link? I mean, because what I'm hearing you say is that these artifacts that you guys were sent via the military, right, to collect them. So that obviously the military is aware of what they want. Is that right?
Right.
So the military is in.
You're talking about the early 90s to mid 90s. They knew that these places existed already. They already had it mapped out. I'm sure you've heard that before, but my first foray into this adventure was down in Central America. I'm not going to be country specific yet, but in the jungles down there, there's some massive cities that have been buried. Nobody in the what would you call it, the regular world knows about that kind of stuff. But in the military, they do know this. They've been able to see it for a long time. And they found some of this technology in cities here in America that they don't talk about, either underground or just wreckage that they find. Stuff still comes here all the time. So
I'm interested because I'm interested about these artifacts. They're obviously alive, right? They've got energy. It's not just something. It's not just a piece of something. This is a very, as you say, specific piece of something that has a specific purpose, which is why it needs to be collected by the ones in power, so that they can assemble it or whatever it is they do. I'll just use the word assemble, so that they can assemble the missing bits and use it for their own nefarious purposes at this time or round about this time. Is that what you're saying?
Well, more like the missing bits would assemble themselves. We just had to gather them together. So
Wow. So it's like the wreckage of a crash, like let's say a wreckage of an aeroplane crash that is scattered all over planet Earth. And on their own, they have a life, but that life is not nearly as powerful, right? When it's isolated. So they've actually sent you guys with special gifts to collect these artifacts from all over the planet, bring them back to them so that they can assemble themselves, right? And do whatever it is their masters want them to do. But like Lord of the Rings here, sounds very Lord of the Rings to me. I don't know. Are we on the right track here?
Vaguely. That kind of includes it just a little bit, but this is the introduction to the underworld I talked about before.
Yeah.
These jungle cities, they obviously have pyramids everywhere. So pyramids are kind of a common structure. They're the tallest thing out there. You can, especially where I live, you can see pyramids that have been buried. And they look like hills, but they're unnatural. And you can tell that there's something there. You can tell. Almost always the humans will build a temple on top of these sites. People who were here before us 80, 100 years ago knew that there's something powerful about that site. And I'm sure they did their own excavations, but they didn't have any training in the magical
realms,
if you want to call it that. So when we went into these temples, there is, astoundingly, they go pretty dang deep into the ground. You're talking kilometers here, not just a couple 100 feet. And not everything down there is on board with what you're trying to do. So it's trying to kill you at the same time. So they needed the warriors to go in there, the war fighters. Try not to say too much.
I know. I do understand. I do understand that obviously there is a limited amount that you can be saying right now, but I think that our viewers kind of get the gist of what we're talking about, and if there's anything that anyone is not understanding, that's why I'd like you just to, I keep asking just to clarify, so that I think I know I'm on the right track as well. And of course, you guys being warriors who are supremely trained in this field, not only in the physical realms, but as well as in the magical realms, the interdimensional realms. So you were working in physical as in well as in the spirit realm, I would imagine, when you're doing this type of work, right?
Right.
Explain that to me or to us, please. What is that like when you're in your physical body and you doing your normal, if anything's normal, you being a combat soldier, right? And in the same time, you've got to fight or find or get in touch with things in a different realm, and you kind of got to go through I would imagine doorways and portals and things to get there. It's very confusing to me. Can you explain how that works, please?
Well, mostly we were looking for sign. And sign, I mean, petroglyphs. It's not like there was a road sign that says, here, look here, there's no big X on the map. Obviously, other people had gone before us and were looking for this before my generation for sure. You hear about it from Nazi Germany all the time. They were looking for these artifacts themselves. That's how we got turned on to it here in America, because the Nazis just came to America, basically. I'm sure you guys have all heard that by now.
Yeah. Operation Paperclip, yeah.
Lots of secrecy around this kind of stuff, so I'm trying to function without. I'm not really caring if I defy the articles of military justice, but there's some of them that I'm trying to side skirt so I don't get into more hot water than I already am. So.
Yeah, no, I get that. Totally get that. Yeah. So when it comes to these ships and things, these live ships, is this what it is? Is that what you're saying? This is what these live ships are? These things that contain this knowledge, superior knowledge. Oh, Mona is gone. Superior knowledge that can either help humanity or destroy humanity at the end of the day.
I don't know about help or destroy, because they have their own agenda. They're artificially intelligent, so they're not on our side. Just put it that way. It's like they put out a distress signal, not to me personally, but to whomever is looking for these things, who above my pay grade. And people above my pay grade ordered us to go in to get these pieces and parts.
Right. What types of creatures did you encounter? Can you tell us what they were like?
We went into these tunnels, and somebody in the last show said something about tree roots being tunnels. That's actually a really interesting point, because that's kind of what we followed. Was like in the stump of a giant tree would be the best way to put it, or the only other way I could describe it would be like lava tubes, but they weren't quite so dramatic as a lava tube. We followed these tunnels down, down, and down, and down. The further down we got, the hotter it got, and also the atmosphere started to change a bit. So that's why you hear my voice the way it is today, is because I had to breathe that air for quite a while, actually, a number of years in different locations, actually. So.
And part of your journey, and I mean, part of your mission there, going into beneath the earth, God knows how far, where you literally suffocating. What were you encountering there? Can you tell us? Anything specific, like creature-wise?
Oh, there was all kinds of strange things that we saw. We entered some big caverns. And by big caverns, I'm not talking 200-300 feet across. I'm talking kilometers across. It had clouds hanging in them, like not quite their own weather, but definitely much bigger than you can imagine. That you would think of being underground, and going from one side to the next. We're strangers and interlopers, and basically some of the first people who have ever been that far. So when you go down that path like that, there is no path. You're kind of blazing your own trail. You don't really know where you're at. So we had to move pretty slowly. It took a couple of weeks to get to some of these places, because we had to move so slowly to first see what's there, and second, deal with what we encountered.
Were you equipped to deal with what you encountered?
Well, in a sense, yeah. Of course, it's stuff trying to kill you, because it's creatures. They're not. It's not like you walk into a civilized town that the people don't like you. It's a wild and dangerous place.
And I obviously not of this earth or this world, right? So you would have had to be
surface world.
Yeah. Okay, the surface world. Important point rather. So how were you able to defend yourself against these supersonic creatures? I'm just going to call them that, because whatever they were, supersonic creatures. You would have had to surely have had some kind of armor. So was that spiritual armor, or was that physical armor that you guys were?
Well, it was a combination of both. I'm not saying I physically wore armor, soft body armor, chest plates, that kind of stuff, helmets. I never wore a helmet because I didn't want to have something on my head that was weighing me down. We had to carry as much ammo, water, and food as we could carry. You're talking 16 men. We're all as strong as can be, but that's not very much to try to survive, especially if you're out in the wild like that. And you really don't know what's to be expected. They don't say, hey, that you're going to see this creature, and that creature. They're going to be right around corner C over on the left stairwell. They don't say that to you. You're down there looking, and you're finding out firsthand what's down there. You have cameras, obviously, so you can record what's happening. You have thermal vision, because it sees in the dark and it doesn't depend on light. It's just heat. And we had our magical abilities. Like I said, we had different people with different sets of what would you call it? I'll just say magical abilities. It sounds too fantastical when I say that, but they handpicked us for this purpose alone, was to go into these places. And they picked us because we knew that we'd already seen these things to a degree, and
they'd already groomed you for this in your little playground.
correct.
In your sand pit, I think that's what
we're not given to panic. In other words, we're not just going to cut and run. We're there for
Yeah.
a specific purpose. The main purpose, I think, was exploration. But the other purpose was to find anything we could find in terms of these artifacts.
So they themselves, sorry, carry on.
I was given the impression that other people had already been down this way before, but didn't make it as far as we did. So they had some idea what was there. But again, they didn't tell us everything specifically. So.
Wow. So, I mean, this is quite crazy. I mean, to think that you've been there and no one else has actually been further than you. Obviously, these guys, your handlers that were sending you to these places would have known something is there, but they're not quite sure what. So, I'm just kind of summing the situation up in my head, right? So these guys have known for a long time, because what we're being told is that this technology or whatever came in around the 20 or 30s, where supposedly some of the US presidents made a deal with the Greys or whatever. And since then, they've been bringing their stuff in. But from what we're hearing, this has been already long before they came in. So they know it's here, and they know it's here from pre-mud flood, because obviously they've got access to that information, and they've now trained. And people ask me if you're a super soldier. I don't think you're a super soldier. I think that you a super soldier plus, right? So they train guys like you. And I was actually going to ask you as well. It's obvious then that all the guys in your team would have had some type of magical, as you say, training, right? Maybe not exactly as you, but each one would have had their little supernatural power that they were bringing to the party.
They had to have it to be there. You were chosen for this job, so you're all type A. You're all trained to the teeth, I guess, if you want to say it that way, in terms of military service. And again, we'll get into that at some point. So I don't care for the term super soldier, but we're definitely tier 1. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's amazing. So did you ever encounter any of these creatures that were friendly to humans? Because, you know, what I'm hearing you say is they really don't like us much. Why not? Why the war? Why the hatred? Why the desire to destroy human beings? Because fundamentally, that's what's happening now, from what we can tell.
Well, it goes back to what I said in the last show. They know that they're going to be replaced because of their rebellion. That's the nearest thing I could figure as to the why of it. So,
right? Isn't it almost like it's interesting to me? So it's like it would seem to me that certain realm of beings has chosen not to evolve, and they've chosen to stay in their terrain and kind of wall themselves in, right? So those of us who've chosen to evolve are maybe taking their place, maybe overtaking them. I don't know. Does that seem legitimate at all?
evolution is probably the wrong word to use. It's more like you're growing up from a child to an adult, I guess would be a better way to put that. But as it relates to the underground stuff, some of the stuff I just plain can't explain to you. You would have to actually see it yourself. Very strange. Like there are these creatures about the size of a car, like your average car, small car. See, like a Japanese sedan about. They kind of look like earwigs, kind of. They were not earwigs. They were super fast, and they actually killed a couple of my team members. And it took us about 4 hours to fight one of these things off, and we had to leave with our losses. And to this day, I can't explain to you what that was, and I don't have a name for it. I couldn't tell you. That's one encounter. Another one, we saw giants, different sizes of giants. They had purplish skin with, I don't want to call them tattoos. It was more like it was part of their skin. These glyphs or sigils or runes, if you want to call it that. So there's two of the things we encountered. But by far the most interesting thing that we saw were people down there, human beings. And they were living kind of wild. I hate to say cavemen, but they were like cavemen. They didn't come up and slap us on the hand with a high five and offer a Big Mac or anything like that. They were trying to kill us. They were trying to run us off. And we had to capture a couple of these people. Without getting too much into that subject, we can if you want to, but some of these people, from what I gathered later, are some of these people who are taken by these creatures. Let's just put it that way. They actually call themselves, not to me personally, like they said, this is what we are, but they call themselves the Forsaken.
So how did they get there? And especially if they like normal humans, how did they get there? And why do they call themselves the Forsaken? I mean, the word in itself, I guess, is self-explanatory, but I'd still like to hear your take on that.
Okay, so you've heard of missing 411 kind of stuff, right? People who get kidnapped, people who get taken away. You also hear about people who are born being taken. That says it all. They're taken by these creatures. They didn't sign a paper saying they want to take a vacation into the deep underground cave with the evil creatures. They got taken against their will at whatever age. And they're used as, from what I could tell, what I could see. Again, I have a narrow view of these things because I was there specifically for something different. It wasn't to go down there and just visit with these people. But they're being used as laborers, slaves, whatever you want to call it. And I'm sure other stuff that was worse. I didn't actually personally see that. I can only tell you what I saw.
Wow. So these are when people disappear without a trace, maybe, right? Could this also be part of those, the kidnappings, as you say, people disappear? Maybe breeders, kids that have been bred for this. Is that possible?
Yes, it is.
And
I think it's like 600,000 people go missing a year just in the United States.
So they're not really all being trafficked and consumed by the Satanists. They're going
they're like Charlotta was, and they come to the useful end of their breedership. I don't want to get too deep into that subject because I want to talk about these Ophanim at some point. But
yeah, absolutely.
These parts and pieces of these ships were down in these places. I don't want to say they were guarded by anything. It was just dangerous to get there in the first place. So,
and if you found something, how did you get it back?
It's not so much getting it back. It's how did we know that we found something? The very first place that we discovered was, again, this is super hard to describe. Maybe Mornay can show that video or that short.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't give you the full scope or true sense of it. That's just an animation, but you hear those sounds, and we'll talk about that too. You hear those sounds in the sky, and when you actually see something like that, and that's just a representation of what I saw, and not a very good one either. And this one wasn't together; it was broken. You can feel it before you see it, especially if you're sensitive like I am, a seer, or you can see in the spirit. You can see this thing before you get there. And that's kind of how they had us following this thing down into the ground. Was leaves its own spiritual trail, I guess. And it was kind of calling to us. And creepy as can be, scary, terrifying. And when you finally get to the place where we were at, I don't want to call it a city. It was some kind of construct around there. Like whatever crashed there had built something almost like a shelter, but it wasn't like a tent. It was like they built something out of that ship and they were living there. By the time we got there, there was nobody around. Just those pieces of the ship. And when we got close to this thing, it started to, at first I would say, manifest things to us. As you get to recognize technology, it was projecting an image to us, like a hologram, I guess, trying to talk to us. And this gets into the magical abilities again. And we've way fast forwarded past where I last talked to you guys, so this is going to be hard to understand. But we wanted people who could understand music, mathematics, runes, and some of the greater magics to be able to interact with these things so that you could understand them. So they speak in a different language. They don't come up to you and talk jive or talk ghetto or anything else. They have their own language.
Wow. An ancient language, I would imagine.
Yes, it is. It's mostly sung. You sing it.
Frequency.
Yeah.
Frequency and vibration. And mathematics and everything, symbols, everything connects on a frequency.
It's heaven's original language. And at some point we'll get into that, but that's how it communicated with us. And there's 16 of us trying to interact with this thing. It took all of us to be able to understand even kind of what it was trying to say to us. It was trying to download information to us all at once, and we weren't able to comprehend that. So we're kind of struggling with how to describe that.
You're talking about the sound in that video as well. There's lots of videos of people that have recorded a similar kind of sound like that in the skies.
Right.
I've seen videos like that before. And they call it dragons. Well, some, but there's different ones. But there's different reasons. But that same kind of sound that people have recorded.
Correct. And again, we've jumped super far ahead, so it's hard to connect all the dots in between. It opens up a huge chasm of questions again. But from what we saw, we were sent down there to get just parts and pieces of this. I don't want to call it a city because it wasn't a city. There wasn't anything there. It was just this ship. That's the best way I can describe it, is a ship. And when some of these things, when you picked them up and you touched them, it would disassemble in your hand like liquid, and it reform on your arm like a gauntlet or a glove, and it would go to specific parts of your body. So, and it wasn't gentle about it, meaning it hurts when it does this to you. It doesn't care how you feel. It's just doing what it's supposed to do. And I'm not sure what it was supposed to do, to be honest with you. So,
how did you get it off?
I didn't. I had to come back out of that place with it on me still. It came off later when in the debriefing. apparently, like I said, there's people above my pay grade that know what this is, and they were able to integrate it. Or here's my take: is I think that we got it to the surface, and it was freed then. Like I said, it reassembled with its other components that other people had found.
Wow.
Very hard to explain.
No, it makes perfect sense. It's like they all these different components are looking for each other. Makes a lot of sense, you know.
Right.
And when they all together, then they work again as a unified force, and that's when they have their true power back, right?
I don't know about the true power. They're pretty powerful all by themselves, but
Or more power.
definitely they needed to reassemble for some reason. And that brings us back to the AI part of it. So that was in the beginning of this, and this went on for a long time, many years, which we'll talk about eventually. But it's really hard to explain this without some kind of context. But
No, I think you're doing a really great job. Thank you. I think you're making it pretty clear. And especially on the topic, it's just amazing. You know, usually we hear, we watch YouTube shorts on people who've heard about this, and you know, it's just quite almost fantastical to hear about it from you, who's actually experienced the stuff firsthand. It's quite incredible. Wow. So I want to ask you, I don't. Is there anything else around that experience or that particular, you know, these artifacts and things that you'd still like to share with us or tell us?
that's just scratching the surface a little bit, just with one thing that we did. There's plenty of other things that we did and other things that we saw. I'm really struggling right now to try to explain that to you without context. So
Yeah, all good. No, it's all good. It's all good. When we're talking about these mecha AI looking transformer type creatures, what is that about? I would imagine that these are also linked to your experiences of going to these different locations, right? And some of the creatures you would have encountered there. I mean, I know that we're often seeing these that look like these great big transformer type looking things. What is that about, and how is that related again to where we are now and to what you went through? It must be all linked. I'm just trying to find the common thread.
well, they're their own intelligence. They, like I said before, it's like a hive mind. They all kind of think the same. They're not powerful all at once together. They're powerful no matter what they are, but they're orders of magnitude more intelligent than we could ever be, I think, at least in our current form. And this is where the high technology that we have today, I mean, think of how advanced it was from 1981 to right now. Look at the leaps and bounds in technology that we've made. It's to all of us, it's normal. It's not anything strange to think of because we've grown up like this. This is our conditioning to this technology. But if you were to step into today from 1981, you'd be astounded at what you're seeing, what you're doing,
Yeah.
communicate and all this. It would be incredible to see it. So we went,
Well,
in terms of, if you want to call it evolution, again, that's a bad term, but evolution-wise, we went forward a couple thousand years just in a couple decades. We fast forwarded that quickly.
yeah, quite amazing.
In the antediluvian world, this was commonplace to have this kind of stuff around. And that's what I gathered from going into these places. Some of the stuff that we did see was from that time, because some of the land has sunken into these caverns. And boy, that's a heck of a study right there, just talking about those places. But everybody's heard about dumbs, and these are deeper than that. They go way deeper. And yeah, some of this technology, it's not on God's side, that's for sure. They want to be their own rulers, and so they're willing to do whatever it takes to subjugate. Let's put it that way. They're very dangerous. And that the very first time that I heard anything interpreted from them, that's why I heard the term Mecca. They called themselves the Mecca. M-E-C-C-A, not M-E-C-C-A.
M-E-C-H-A, or Mecca. Yeah,
Yep.
M-E. Yeah, okay. So where do these Mecca actually come from? Because we hear a lot about the lizards, and we hear a lot about the star systems with a whole lot of these like dark being creatures ruling and kind of like honing in on Earth. Where do the Mecca fit in along with the lizards or all of this stuff? Can you give us shed some light on that for us, please?
Well, it relates to the Ophanim, which were the wheels within the wheels. Look at that video. Those are Ophanim that they're representing there. And I believe that God can transport himself any way he wants to, but other creatures have to have transportation to do stuff. Even at the speed of thought and this and that. We're not God, so we accepted public transit system. Let's put it that way. The bus. It's like a really super smart, very dangerous, evil bus that will dissolve itself and reform itself into other things. The evil ones are that way. And the Ophanim themselves, I know there's a big debate whether these Ophanim are alive or not, but I would have to say that they're alive because they sing in heaven. They sing God's praises in heaven. Wow. 1/3 of heaven fell, so it stands to reason that some of these Ophanim fell too. They're very close to God. They're underneath his throne, actually. So if you think of it that way, these are some very, very, very powerful angels. Living ships, I call them. So it's hard to wrap your mind around something like that. But when you see these things in person, and I believe that people are starting to see some of these things, at least representations of them in the sky. You see it all the time now. And I think they're doing that because they want it to be normalized when they finally show up, so people don't just panic. They don't soil themselves. Let's put it that way. Pretty terrifying stuff, actually. But it's what they call skyquakes and that kind of thing. I think both sides of the coin are here, the good and the bad. So
I was about to actually ask you that, we understand again, and I know you and I have had a few conversations about this as well at this time, because, as you say, with the Ophanim, they were really high up and literally sat under God's throne. So with a lot of God's knowledge, they came down, and as you say, some of them fell. And it's that information that they're now using and have been using since then, pretty much against God, against humanity. Yeah, am I right?
Right.
Right.
It's just their rebellion against heaven itself because they want to be the ones that rule. They instituted that. They instituted order here like it was in heaven. So it's as above, so below. It's the same hierarchy. It just goes down instead of up. Or up instead of down. Get it that way. So
again, everything just inverted, right?
Right.
I mean, they've really just taken everything and inverted it. Wow. And done it so brilliantly and with so much deception that we don't even see when half of it is done, or more than half of it anyway. Wow, that's crazy.
Kind of feel like I'm doing not doing this justice because there's so much context that's missing that it's hard to plug it in for you so that you can see the full picture. But for the sake of the show here, I'm trying to explain to you the best I can without sounding too fantastical, You're on mute, Chantel.
Chattering to myself. Normal. No, I know what I'm saying is that's really good, because I think I know from also just doing these shows now, the more as we start broaching, as you say, these fantastical topics, it's very difficult to give full context in the beginning, but I know the opportunity will come along, and then we will obviously get more and more out of you. Not out of you, but you'll be able to be more clear on a lot of these things that we're kind of just touching on now.
Right.
So how would you say, knowing what you know and seeing what you've seen, at this time for us as humans, what do we need to be looking out for? How do we get to see the BS from the truth right now?
One of the ways that I was taught in the schools of magic is you can't always trust what comes out of the mist. And I just mean a physical mist, but the mist of time, the mist of spirit. Can't always trust what you see is real. So discernment for sure, and test the spirits for sure. And always be wary of what you're getting yourself into, because you don't always know what it's about. So
Absolutely.
You've been given your own internal alarm system. Like you don't get into the blue van with the blacked out windows offering candy. You don't do that, right?
Yeah.
It's probably a bad idea to get in that van. So if you see the blue van with the blacked out windows driving by, you should probably stay away from it. Not be fascinated by it, as pretty as the blue color is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And faith, right? Faith more than ever right now.
Right. Just so that everybody knows, I did pay a heavy price with some children, and we'll get into that later. I lost 4 children, just so you know. So this isn't free information. It was paid for already. So I think their ultimate agenda is to bring forth what everybody would call the Antichrist. They want to join hands with their former owners, if you want to call it. I wouldn't call them owners, but the ones they used to work with in heaven. We're side by side with them. And they want to bring about this end days scenario, if you want to call it that too. I don't think it's just a scenario or just a fake thing. I totally believe it's happening, but as they become unleashed, and as we found more of these pieces and parts and assembled these things back together again, the worse the world was getting at the same time. So that should tell you something. They found more of these things, or they've assembled them, or they've aggregated the parts that they did find, to the point where you see the madness around you every day here. It's incredible to see how bad it's turned. So
yeah. Would you say that has a lot to do with like opening of the spiritual gates, and that sort of thing?
Yep. Everybody thinks of CERN as the only gate that there is that opened, but there's actually 49 gates that you can go through with training. And again, we'll get into that later. You'll hear the term Logaeth a lot as we talk about that, because that's heaven's language, is Logaeth.
Wow.
It's a living language. So again, that's more questions to be asking. But in terms of these things, you see it everywhere. It's far more pervasive. I can't even write an email without AI asking me if I want to do it this way better now. And it's tempting to say, yeah, sure, because I can only type one-handed. So it's easier for the AI to take over. But what kind of conditioning is that right there? You know, they're trying to make it seem like, well, let's just let this AI take over and it'll do the job for you. You know, sure, that's what they want.
Absolutely. They're making it so much easier for everyone. This is the thing, everything. I mean, I remember in my heyday, we weren't even allowed to use calculators in maths exams, right? We weren't even
Right.
allowed to use calculators. It's just insane how things have changed in such a short space of time. So, I mean, wow. And yeah, the whole AI, as you said, you know, it makes a lot of sense to me. You know, the collecting of these artifacts that pretty much when they're together gives rise to this horrible system.
Right.
That really is all about transhumanism, right?
Correct. And that's exactly it. Is transhumanism. They want you to transmutate into what they are. And they want to integrate with you and use your spirit that way. So that's kind of their point and purpose. And I'll just tell you what some of the artifacts were, because it relates directly to the final king of this earth. I'm not talking about Christ. I'm talking about the evil one. There were suits of armor, if you want to put it that way. Like I said, that thing gun on my arm didn't come off till we came to the surface, and they were able to take it off, and not without damage. There are also masks, or 9 masks they're directly related to 9 magics, 9 different kinds of magic, different colors, different types of stone, that kind of thing. And when put together, they make one mask, the last mask for the 10th king. They represent 10 or 9 kings, plus the last one will be the 10th one. And those masks give a tremendous amount of power. And I wore every single one of the 9 that we found. I put it on my face just to see. And you can see some incredible things. There's lots of information packed into those things. And the only way I can describe it to you is like it's so hard to describe this without you being able to see it. It was the be-all, end-all of the knowledge I was looking for, just put it that way. It showed me what I needed to know to get through the first of the 48 gates that I went through.
Wow. I look forward to finding out what you found behind each of those gates.
Right.
That must be quite an experience in itself. That's incredible. So it's obvious.
Those were the ultimate thing they sent us to look for, were those masks.
So I'm assuming, and I mean, okay, if I'm thinking a mask you're talking about, I would imagine one great big fancy mask, or is it something not fancy at all? I mean, is it like
fancy, just hard to comprehend, actually. To wear all 9 masks, you would be an incredibly powerful individual at that point. You'd be like God himself almost.
wow, and that's obviously what they're trying to. So are you saying that the person who takes the crown in this Mecha AI Antichrist system will wear that mask? Is that what they're looking for? It's for the one person that actually takes that role, because I know this Antichrist is an entire system, but there is going to be one person at the head.
One person at the head for sure, and that's what he's going to wear when he goes into the temple.
And it's going to be giving him all that the information, pretty much like God. Wow. Yep. So it's all in the mask. So what you guys have literally been sent to do is to collect artifacts to assimilate for the mask of the Antichrist, so that you can have antenna direct to God, basically.
Or godlike power.
Yeah, that's that antenna, from the mask. Wow. Well, there we have it. So now we know what every other thing is trying to divert us from. It makes me so sick. Honestly, it makes me sick when I see that behind the scenes, this is what they're doing. Yet they put up such a song and a dance and a facade up front with their stupid actors and actresses, stupid politicians wearing their masks and their fake ears and whatever it is. And it's such a charade. I mean, it costs millions, right, to put up such a charade. This must be really important for them, right?
Oh, definitely to send us in. My initial training was about $6 million, if not more. And add in the decades later, you're talking probably 10 times that amount they spent on just training me easily.
I'm sure they were not happy when you decided.
No, they were not.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that another day. So a question that someone asked early on, were you able to foretell the future when you were in putting these things on and testing the masks?
What it did, each one of them plays a part in taking you outside of the time stream. So it's hard to say, was that the future? It's just, I've spoken about the skein before, the woven tapestry of existence. It enabled you to jump across threads.
Wow. Anything's possible, basically. I would imagine that is kind of a sensational feeling that gets you so completely out of your human mind that you go hopping around all over, right?
Right.
In the galaxies.
I'm not sure if you can tell, but I'm really uncomfortable talking about this just because it's a fantastical sounding thing, but it's extremely hard to describe it. It's extremely hard to relate it to you.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that we pretty much got an idea of what that's about. And I know we're also kind of getting running, I mean, we're never out of time really, but I think I would just like to maybe just ask you, just in closing then, what would you, again, knowing what you know, what would you say to the viewers right now at this time? In terms of taking care of themselves, whatever.
Well, spiritual health is definitely important. You want to be on the right side of this showdown at the end. And now was the time, I guess would be the best way to put it. I feel like I did just a disservice by not fully explaining everything I could have today. But without the context, it's super hard to describe it because there's a lot of information missing as to why I was even there in the first place. So,
yeah, I think we get to that as we go along. But I really think it's good for people to know what we're up against. You know, no one really knows what we're up against. That's what I'm saying. No one really knows what we're up against. And there are few people who can actually give us information to understand what we are dealing with. And at least if we know what we're dealing with.
And just talking about it, my discomfort isn't like a panic or if you're actually feel nauseous right now. Just talking about some of this stuff. Not because it makes me sick, probably because they don't want me to talk about it. Would be a guess. So it's a real-time attack right now. So
yeah, no, I understand. Well, I think our audience is certainly praying for you, and thank you. Is that Stacy that you've supported Caleb on the show? Stacy Jane Platt, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Well, guys and girls, I really think I know it's been quite a tough interview for Caleb as well. Please bear in mind, this is the first time he's actually speaking about any of this publicly. So I'm asking everyone for their prayers of protection for him as we go along. This is not easy information to hear either, because I think it makes many of us feel like idiots that we've also been duped in a system that clearly has no one's goodwill other than their own. in sight, right? So, Caleb, before you end off for us in prayer, I want to just invite you guys again Sunday. If you missed the beginning of the show, we do a show with Caleb again on Sunday, same time as what today's is. And we're going to be going more into the Cabbage Patch Kids. If you guys haven't watched last week's interview on the Cabbage Patch Kids, where he explains where these children come from, right? Please watch it. It's super informative, super interesting. And we're going to be going further into it now this week as well, because I know the Mind Unveiled, I think it is, has brought out a new, on the hospital, the Cabbage Patch Kids Hospital that we were looked at this morning. But there's so much symbolism and stuff in there, and Caleb's going to talk us through that as well and help us understand what that is all about. So thank you so much, everybody. God bless you, and thank you for joining us. And I'm just going to ask Caleb if you'll end for us in prayer.
Sure. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for today. Thank you for information being released. I ask you for protection for all of us here that hear this. I just ask you to forgive us for what we've fallen down for and help us just keep going. No matter how hard it gets or what that we are attacked like, I just ask you this in your holy name. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Caleb. Really appreciate you. And you're in our prayers. And I ask everyone just to hold Caleb up in your prayers as we walk through this really very crazy life experience. So thank you, everybody. Take good care. Please like, share, subscribe. This information is really important to get out there. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I have Danny Henderson and Leo Zagami tomorrow afternoon. And we have a drop-in with Ara as well in the morning. Cool. Thank you, everybody. God bless you all. Take good care. See you soon.
Bye.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Thursday, Aquarius Rising Africa, and it's Caleb Day. How are you, Caleb? Hello, morning. Are you guys well?
Hello.
I'm okay.
Good. Well, nice to have you here, and nice to have everybody in our chat. Now, it's really good to see you guys here. Firing up the chat like a good few minutes before the show comes on. So welcome, everybody. Nice to see our regulars here. Awesome. Well, I think today we're going to be talking a little bit, because there have been quite a few questions that we've been speaking about, Caleb, as these living ships, right, that we spoke about in some of your previous interviews as well. And the masks and things that you also mentioned, and you also mentioned in previous shows that you've actually had some of these things on, and what that's like and what it really means. Because it's, I think what I'm seeing and what we're seeing now as well is more and more of this stuff is being disclosed. Slowly but surely it's coming to the fore that there's a lot of this sort of dodginess going on. And I know a lot of the American people are questioning why, if they, if the taxpayers are funding these operations, why they don't get access to see what is going on. But I think the first thing that that I'd like to maybe look at with you is actually, before we even start, please, I'm bad with this right now. Let's start in prayer, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Sure. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for the chance to learn some more new things. I ask that you be with us. Help us make connections and put lines to dots and cross T's and everything else that we need to do. Ask again for your favor and your healing in all areas for all of us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Cool. So I'd like to then maybe just, as you're saying, look at some of the the flights, especially, and I think the particular one that we were looking at is flight MH370, which is a Malaysia flight that actually went missing somewhere in 2014, right? Now, I'm thinking there must be a correlation between what's going on and where did that flight go? Did it just disappear into some portal? Did the people die? Where are they? I don't know. So over to you. You've always got such a wealth of information for us. I look forward to hearing what you have to say to us today about that.
Yeah.
Well, I mainly wanted to show a clip of the video, which I wasn't able to find. It's not connected to some other channel. I know it's out there. I just couldn't find it. But they show a portal and how it actually looks when you're going through it. Very fascinating. I sent some pictures to you through Mornay, I think. He wants to put those up.
These ones.
Yeah, you got
just
them up.
Screen grabs. But see, it forms a triangle.
Wow.
I tried to capture the moment that the plane goes through that, but I wasn't able to do the screen grab in time.
Wow. So what is, I mean, is that a portal, or is that really the American military playing silly buggers?
Why not both?
Mm.
You have to ask yourself, why not both?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it probably would be both because they're working in cahoots with each other, right? They would be.
Right. If you see the actual video, if you want to share the link, you can. But it's on, I think the channel is called Leak Project. If you watch that video, you can actually see the plane cool off before it goes through the portal. And you can see it somewhat shrink. So the plane's a whole lot cooler than it was. Without a series of screen grabs, I can't really show you right here, but I can point you to the actual video. Very fascinating.
I'm just gonna actually send this through and just see if that's no, not through that. Wrong one, Monet. Sorry.
Cool.
So let me just give you the proper thing. But that's very interesting because it really is showing that there's a lot of stuff going on, right? That these guys are doing that we are pretty much unaware of. And it's very much kept in a clandestine, hidden from us, really. In a nutshell, it's hidden from us.
Right. I agree. Rex is a good host of the show. I like to listen to what he has to say when he's not too kooky. Imagine that pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah, that is a bit pot calling the kettle black there. That's for sure. But I'm actually just going to share this because you can actually see that. Mona, maybe you can just have a look here, and there we go.
It's a fascinating video.
Yeah, very fascinating. Flight Malaysia, I'm not sure if any of the viewers are aware of it. Flight MH370, and I think it was in 2014, right? Where this flight just disappeared. And, I think they were saying the guy was doing some research and he was saying that they only paid some people $30,000, some Malaysian people, whatever, for people that didn't return.
They cut it out of the press.
Yeah.
They cut it totally out of the press. Everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should I
Do you want to say
share this? Yeah, I just wanted to say, should I just, this the beginning of this video, because I see it's a little long video, but is it in the beginning, this images?
Yeah, it'll show the actual going through the portal part of it.
You are about to see.
And thanks to Rex from Leak Project.
Amazing footage ever released of UAPs and high technology. This is the MH370 flight that disappeared in 2014. And now you're about to find out why. Ashton Forbes is with us today. He has a top security clearance with the government that is not associated with this footage, so he can talk about this. And he has spent the past several months, hours and hours, attempting to get this information out to the world, and he's doing a pretty good job. Look at this. Boom, done. This is the same plane being circled by 3 UAPs, look like orbs. You can even see the trails that they're leaving behind them. You can see the heat from the craft, from the aircraft below on the underbelly. And in a moment, you're going to see this airplane. Boom, gone. There it is. Disappeared.
True.
Let's talk about it.
Disappeared.
Yeah, Forbes with us and
disappeared.
I have to give Rex a shout out here.
I will.
Yeah.
Post this.
We'll post the link. We'll post the link. But obviously, Caleb, you know about these things. I mean, you've been involved in this sort of stuff. So, can you maybe shed some light on that for us from your perspective, as to what you think could be going on there?
Well, it has a direct correlation to the living ships subject. I'm not sure how many of you watched the living ships show that we did a while back here, about a month ago or so. And how we were sent out to find these things and to take artifacts out of them for whatever purpose the government wanted them for, or whatever purpose those AI mecha wanted to be free for. I said there are 9 of them. And if one wants to get to the next story, you will see that's 9 living ships that they were especially looking for. There was more than that, but the 9 have a direct correlation to the masks they spoke about.
Well, I think we do have some pictures of these masks. I think if it's possible, can you talk us through what these masks?
They aren't the actual pictures of the masks. They're just representations.
Right. Okay. Well, could you maybe talk us through that and then let us know about these masks again, what these masks are, how they really work. We have done a show on that before, not a full show, but it is in one of our previous. And again, I want to just, any of the new viewers that are new here, and I know I oftentimes get questions on Caleb and his background and stuff. And I really just want to invite you to go and watch our playlist. We have a playlist on Aquarius Rising Africa. And in one of the playlists is all Caleb's interviews. So I really want to invite you to maybe go back and watch those so that you do get some background information as to who Caleb is and where he gets his information from, basically. Well, in this case, it's through his own experience in the military, as well as working.
I started doing this in 1996.
Yeah.
Look at how long that was.
Yeah. So
this didn't just happen in the
can you
last
explain? Okay, I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to let you talk because I feel like I'm talking over you. I don't know if you've got a delay or something.
Go ahead and finish what you were saying.
No, I was just wanting to sort of go back and just sort of ask you to maybe go back and talk about these 9 masks or these 9 living ships and these artifacts and things that you were involved in getting back for the US government, what they needed for, why they want them, etc. So if you wouldn't mind just going there for us.
Well, like I said, this basically started in 1996 for me, and obviously there's the sideshow of the military industrial establishment that I was a part of. So I wasn't just pointed in this one direction. you're going to do this and this is what you're going to do. They didn't do that. They're just doing all kinds of different things. So we kind of got to talk about the. I don't know if you have a link for that news article you can post for them so that they can at least watch what's said. And they can see that it's not just me saying something. It's coming out publicly now, finally. I actually feel like I can talk about it now. I have been talking about it so for years, not just a week or two.
Right.
For me, this adventure started in South America. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with the Iran-Contra debacle, where Iran-Contra rebels were the Sandinistas were part of a CIA operation to keep a couple puppet governments in place. And, well, it turned into a you-know-what show. I'm going to try not to cuss this time around. It turned south really quick. They had to put the blame on somebody, so good old Ollie North got the blame for it. I say good old with quotes around it. But it wasn't just the Sandinistas or the Contras. There's a much bigger organization called the Shining Path. Or Sopa Machaco, the Shining Path. They're communists and they live out in the jungle. They want to bring back native sovereignty to that whole area. They want to do away with all those governments and make it one big country. So I had a lot of dealings in that arena or area of operations. So this is before the war on terror was a big thing, and Russia still had some influence over Afghanistan, which will play into this at some point. So anyway, we had to go looking for these ships based on human intelligence or human. So you'd hear stories. I wouldn't hear the stories. Somebody would, and they'd tell us what to go looking for. So we started finding stuff on the surface first. Telltale clues, certain types of radiation, exotic metals, ferrofluid or black goo. And we knew that something was close. And before you ask me, well, how did they crash there and what happened? Well, that they were all taken down pre-flood, I believe. A good lot of them were really deep in the ground. And it's like they were trapped.
So when you're talking about the stuff on the surface, like you're saying, precious metals, black goo, stuff like that.
Rare metals.
Sorry?
Rare metals, not precious metals. Exotic metals.
Exotic metals. Okay. And this is obviously stuff that had its own kind of intelligence. Is that right? So it wasn't stuff that like you'd ordinarily find on the Earth's surface. It would have had its own.
Imagine holding two magnets together on a table and they slap together really fast. That's what the properties of these things were like. They're attracted to each other. And they had a resonating hum to them. You could feel it in your hands when you touched it.
A resonating hum. That's interesting. So we're talking, when you talk about the hum, you're talking about a sound vibration as well.
Not just a sound, but it went deeper than that. You could feel it in all the way up your arms. It was like playing Marco Polo.
Yeah.
You ever played that game as a child, Marco Polo? That's what it was like. Marco Polo. So we're calling it Marco. And these pieces would say Polo. That's putting it simply.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense though. I'm just interested again, I'm always gonna, for me, it's fascinating to imagine that you guys were on these expeditions, call them that. Now, what are you wearing? I mean, obviously, the people that were sending you on these missions was the military. Now, are you wearing normal clothes? Are you wearing like masks and radiation gear? What are you wearing when you're going on these operations?
Well, as much as I wanted to wear my belly t-shirt and my tight pants and my platform shoes, we were dressed as operators.
Wow. Very interesting. So you're finding this stuff, and I know in one of the previous shows you actually spoke about getting some of the stuff getting on your hand, right? And it actually you had to take it off. So the surface stuff, you were saying when you found the surface stuff, you knew there was actually stuff that was also deeper. So were you traveling through portals? Were you going through the different dimensions? How were you actually getting to the deeper level stuff with these living ships when you were seeing evidence that something was there?
All right, this is where this is going to be hard to deal with because my mobile hotspot just ran out. The rest of this internet is going to be really crappy. So I
Do you
didn't
need
hear
to
what
change
you
your
said.
internet? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
ran out of my
Internet. Yeah, I know where you are. The internet is a problem. So we're busy. I know Caleb's got to change his internet at the moment, guys. And we're probably going to be going onto an internet that is not that great right now, but we're going to try our best, right? Okay. Can you hear me now? Just want to make sure that you can actually hear me. Seems like
He's
we've got an
probably
internet
switching
issue.
still. Yeah, I think he's
Yeah,
switching.
we're just going to
maybe.
wait. Just going to wait a few minutes.
You're cutting out really bad. So.
All right. Can you hear me though? Have you swapped your internet? Not yet. Okay, well, I think we've probably got an internet problem. Yeah, isn't this interesting how these things always start occurring when we get to the juicy bits? But we're patient. We will continue to persevere. I want to just say I'm not sure if Caleb is going to be able to carry on for much longer, guys. And I know he did kind of make an apology up front because of the internet issue that he's having where he currently is. And he needed to swap over these internet, and it doesn't seem to be playing along with us right now. Okay, guys, it's not going to work. It's not going to work today. This is frustrating for all of us, I think, and Caleb as well. So yeah, I think what we're going to do is we're going to reschedule this conversation. I humbly apologize, but we will obviously get it at a better time. I'm not sure if tomorrow will work for him. I'm going to be chatting with him off air and then just see when there's going to be another time that we can talk. Okay, so let's see how that can work out for us in the future. In the meantime, I'm so sorry that we've had to cut the call short. It's very interesting. He was talking about the 9 living ships, which he's been involved in each and every one of them, actually collecting artifacts from these different places. And what he was saying now is when they were going, they would first find stuff on the surface, like exotic metals, black goo, stuff like that. And then they would then know that there was something deeper in there, and then they would find a lot of these masks. He himself actually put some of those masks on his face, and he explains actually that they all carry a different consciousness. Every mask has its own consciousness, and it has its own thought process. So then you put on these masks. When he puts on these masks, you kind of have the thought process, like it's a different entity channeling, I would imagine would be the closest way that we can explain it. And then these were all being collected for this time, because they would then, it's like all like puzzle pieces fitting together. And it's coming from pre-mud flood times. So that when these things were flying around here, and then obviously when the floods happened, a lot of that stuff got destroyed. And these entities are working along with the military, the US military, and I'm sure other militaries as well. But mainly the US military, because that's who he worked for, and collecting these things for whatever nefarious purpose that they were collecting them. Smoker, and you're right, smoker.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking about the mask. The mask, like Jim Carrey.
That's exactly what Peg Shields is saying, a smoker. So that's pretty much what it is. But but that's obviously what they've been collected for, and they all have their own consciousness, and you know, this whole AC system that we are. Jessica, you're so cute. I wish I had all the information. I would love to carry on with this topic, but obviously it's not going to work. And you know, I don't want to give up, I guess, too much. By the way, Just Colleen, you're a Patreon now. Just Colleen, just so you know. You've got a sponsor. Okay, guys. So we're going to wrap it up here. And hopefully Sunday, Caleb will be back with us again, if not sooner. Today is the 7th, 8th, 9th. Tomorrow's the 8th. Yeah, I think by the 10th, Sunday is fine. So if we do not get you before tomorrow or even Saturday, I'm going to try and see what we can figure out. Then we shall get you on Sunday. Nice to see you all. Thank you so much. Really, really, really enjoy having you. I could sit here forever and chat with you, but I don't think that would kind of like be what we came here for anyway. So guys, God bless you all. We'll catch up with you later. Apologies for this, but this is the way things are on these types of channels. You know, we take the hits. There's lots of them that come up. Strange things happen. I want to tell you, strange things happen. I tell you something, this little farm girl from the ass end of Africa has seen things in the last couple of years that I was like, what are you talking about? Anyway, great. Take it easy, guys. God bless you all. We'll see you soon.
There you go.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. I think we are live. We're streaming from Zoom today, which is something quite unusual for us nowadays. But there we go. I'm just checking to make sure we are live. Yes, I can see we are live. I hope everyone has moved over from StreamYard and moved over to Zoom, because we can't really see our live chat from here. But anyway, happy Sunday. Welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa, and welcome to Caleb Jade Show. Hello, Caleb. How are you doing?
I'm here.
I'm very happy you're here. Barely. But we're all here, just barely. It's Sunday. So I'm very happy to have you back, because I know on Thursday we had a bit of a problem with the internet, and I know you also still got a few internet problems, but we're hopefully going to be seeing them through today. So, yeah, it's really good to have you back. And we want to carry on with the 9 live, or this, the ships, what ships again? Yeah, the ships, right? The live ships. Living ships. Yeah, very interesting. So, Caleb, over to you.
First, I think we need to pray.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. Thank you for another chance to share. Thank you that a way is made, even though it's not the usual way for this video. I ask you for strength and for healing and for peace. Just help me calm down and help everybody just have a decent chat. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Yeah, we're all good. We're all good. So I think everyone understands that when we've got internet issues, it happens. So take a breath and just go ahead. So, Caleb, I'm just interested to know, we chatted a little bit about the 9 living ships. We were actually moving. We were from Thursday's show. We were talking about that. But before that, we were actually talking about that flight MH370, I do believe it is, Malaysia flight that in 2014, MH370 that disappeared in 2014, which was looked like, when you're looking at the footage, 3 orbs surrounding it. And then the next thing, it just disappears into nothingness. It seems like these orbs have just kind of teleported it away. And also, just when we're looking upon further investigation, what they're saying is that it actually went to Maldives, that it actually landed. I mean, there were witnesses that were saying they saw this flight appearing in Maldives, but of course the witnesses were silent and stuff like that. And there's a lot of talk about it being the US military that's doing it. And my question is why, So yeah, if you can just maybe talk us through that a little bit, I'd appreciate that.
I don't have the why for you, other than the fact that they just knew that they could do it. Sure, it's not the first time it's happened.
Yeah. In your experience, though, I mean, why? I mean, I know you. I'm not necessarily talking about the specifics of the why for that particular flight, but I think it's becoming more and more abundantly clear to us that this is not the first time, it's not the only time, and that the military is doing things like this. They're hiding stuff from the general public. I know, especially the American taxpayer is fitting the bill for these things to happen. Can you give us maybe more information from your experience, what you know, as to these things that are going on, and literally kept as classified information by the CIA?
Well, I don't have a link handy for that news article that talks about the 9 ships that they say they found. It has everything to do with that. I don't have that link anymore. It's on the other chat. If you look in the Google chat, I know that link's there. I don't know if you can share it or not.
Yeah, Mona, do you still have that link? That you could maybe just share it. That one where they're talking about the nine living ships. Yeah. So how's that related to what that disappearing aircraft could be? What is the connection between all of this stuff?
Technology. The article's not about 9 living ships, but they're acknowledging that they found 9 ships with bodies and technology involved. They found more than just 9 ships. It's like saying Area 51 is the only area that's secret. That's the 51st area. They publicly acknowledged it's there. There's 50 other places that you don't know about.
Well, do you know about the 50 other places?
I don't know all of them, but I know a few of them.
Are you prepared to share with us what you know about I mean, it's always, I know that you and I did briefly talk about this the other day, I mean, I've always thought about, okay, Area 51, there's either something very significant about the number 51, or there's like 50 others before that that have also got a whole lot of dodgy things going on there. And I'd be interested to know what those things are. So if there are others, 49, 48, 47, 1, 2, 3, whatever, what do you know about what is there?
Well, they're secret areas, I can say that much.
Yeah, they would be secret. Can you tell us what's happening there, or give us an idea? Yeah.
Jesse has talked about some of them. I'm not going to try to stomp all over her research.
Are we talking about like?
I didn't know everything. I just knew what I knew. Experience. It wasn't wearing a lab coat, working in the lab someplace.
Okay, so
in other words, I can't really talk about it right. That's what I keep trying to point out here.
I understand that. I do understand. I'm just wondering what you can tell us. Okay. But I know what Jessie has mentioned to us in the past is also like she's spoken quite a bit about the water bases with that, or the water base. That's the only one she's really given us any disclosure on. So would that be a similar type thing where we are dealing with that kind of stuff? Is that what we're talking about, like when we're also looking at some of the other numbers, right?
Sure.
Right. They're creating like these monstrous creatures. They doing stuff to sharks. They're putting like supersonic stuff in them, sharks, which makes them more aggressive. Dolphins, whales, stuff like that. Dragons, all sorts of creatures in the water. Are we on the right track there when we're talking about these things?
Let's talk about it some other time. I'll try to stay on
Okay.
track.
All right. Well, then let's talk about the nine ships, the living ships. Can you talk to us about that?
Can I finish the backstory about it first? You want me to just talk about just the ships?
No, we can go for the backstory, obviously.
Well, it's in South America where we started this all. Started about 1996. Some of the Bush wars, if you want to call them that, were started by the U.S. government because they were supporting both sides like they do almost everywhere on the whole face of the planet. And we were sent down there to follow after one of these groups called the Shining Path. They're a Marxist bunch that want to overthrow every government down. And we followed them around for a while, and they kept disappearing into the jungle. They just vanished without a trace. So we started to wonder why that is. So we followed them a little closer and talked to some of the locals about their activities. By talk to locals, I mean we paid them. They didn't say anything to us unless we paid them a lot of money. So we did upwards of $100,000 per person to tell us information. And they finally gave up the information that they were going into tunnels underground. Bear in mind, this is before the known fact that most of South America is one giant city. The entire continent is one giant city. It's just been buried from the flood. That's a known fact these days. It's something you can look up. They would disappear into these, I would call them the sewers of these cities, and pop up in different places. That was my first foray into the underground. Any questions?
I'm good. You can carry on. I'm good. I don't think I have any questions around that. I mean, what you're saying is in 1996, basically in South America, you were informed, or you followed basically what's something called the Shining Path, right? And you obviously were given information on tunnels and stuff that was happening there, and the locals were paid large amounts of money, or you guys paid the locals large amounts of money to give you information about what they were seeing there. So I'd be interested to know what information they gave you actually.
Well, they gave us the information anybody who's an informant would give you. Yeah, they're here. Yeah, they're there. Yeah, they're over here. Yeah, they do this. This is when they do it. This is how they do it. That kind of stuff. They took us to locations where they'd come up out of the ground, that kind of thing. We started to uncover these tunnels, this tunnel. And they weren't thousands of feet deep like we found later. We're literally talking like a sewer system kind of this gigantic city. We didn't just hop into the first one and go, oh, it's a gigantic city. Let's map it. We didn't know anything about it. It was just as much of a surprise as anything else. But apparently, other people had an inkling that that was going on because it's the same scenario up in North America. North America was basically one giant city at one point. I think most of the planet was covered with city at one point. Lots of evidence that points to that. When the big flood happened, the Great Flood, and parts of the crust collapsed under weight of the water on it, a lot of that was put out to sea. So that points to those areas that you were talking about. So anyway, went into these tunnels and started to slowly figure out what was what. It wasn't just us guys with guns being cautious in case we had to kill people. Researchers, linguists, people familiar with the Mayan language, that kind of stuff. It wasn't just us. Researchers. If you were given the chance to go down there to do some research, would you go with us? Or would you stay out of
it? And go, of course. Most definitely.
So that's kind of what that entailed, was getting people to come with us who wanted to come with us. Obviously, they signed a non-disclosure agreement. So I'm not going to say a lot about the alphabet soup agencies that were involved with that. There's a bunch of them. Most people know what branch of the service I served in now, but I was attached to other branches, let's put it that way. Joint Special Operations Command had purview over everything. JSOC, they call it. Those are the ones who cut our orders. We get our orders directly from the White House. It was probably getting their orders directly from whoever was controlling the United States government.
So what were your discoveries there? What could you tell us? I mean, is this kind of like where you started seeing through the tunnel, through going into these tunnels, that you were discovering these artifacts that you were telling us about previously? Was this where you started getting the artifacts?
This was just the discovery that there was more to what we were seeing. It wasn't the artifacts. I'm just trying to give you the backstory on
Okay.
that was in the beginning. Artifacts didn't come until years later. There's a lot of time learning about lore, chasing UFO sightings, that kind of stuff. Again, it was just talking to people out in the jungle. At the same time, we're supposedly fighting a war on drugs and trying to fight these communist guerrillas, trying to capture them to see what they knew. Eventually, we did. We were able to find out from them that these tunnels go a lot deeper. And they're not just in one local area we were in, they were everywhere. That's when we started looking into cryptid sightings. We started looking into wherever locals would start to vanish, that kind of thing. We started to look into them. So it's like following a crumb trail to find these things out. Obviously, they had their unearthed temples that they have out there, cities, stuff they dug up. What you see in pictures wasn't the way that they found that stuff. They thought it was just a hill. They didn't realize they're building on top of a giant pyramid. Hold on, I gotta stop for a second.
Okay, so what we're hearing is that, I mean, they were going on these incredible missions where the locals were giving them a lot of information about tunnels and stuff, and then obviously discovering a lot deeper stuff that was going on. And a lot of the stuff was built on pyramids, in fact. So I'm wondering, is this the star forts you're talking about as well, or is this the pyramids? Is this something different rather?
Was part of it. So I gotta blow my nose here.
No problem. Take your time. Wow, this is super interesting. And this is, you know what's really interesting here is obviously, I mean, we're going back as far as 1996. So we're looking, I mean, it's almost 30 years ago now, right? And it's been incredible because in that time, obviously the US military would have then figured stuff out, that there was stuff there, and sent you guys in there, right, Caleb, to figure out what was going on. Something must have given them the insight that there's more to what meets the eye. But anyway, carry on. I'll let you carry on.
We weren't the only people down there searching. So to hear me talking, it sounds like it was just me and 4 flashlights stumbling around in these sewers. You know, there's a lot of people involved in this whole thing.
Right.
I know everybody wants to say, well, you can't keep a secret in a crowd, which is true, but in that crowd of people, you can. It just depends on how much you pay them. There's your $20,000 hammers, that kind of thing. So as time progressed, we were able to map some of these sewers out and figure out where they were. And they weren't sewers. I'm just calling it, for the lack of a better term, able to map them out and discovered that it was a vast network of these things. And we started to discover that they went deeper. Almost always when they went deeper, there was a giant pyramid on top of it. It's going deeper into the ground. It wasn't just a manhole cover in the jungle. It's a danger, it's deep. It was under a giant pyramid, almost always. Now I know this is running like crazy here. Sorry.
Okay. What you're saying, it's always that, you know, where you found these things always on a pyramid. I'd be interested to know why a pyramid. Because as far as I know, the pyramid will draw energy inward, upward, or downward, upward, right? I'm not actually quite sure anymore. So that must have something to do with the energy that the pyramid is able to harness. So interested to know why always on a pyramid.
It wasn't on a pyramid, it was under a pyramid.
Under a pyramid. Okay. Wow.
Honestly, I couldn't tell you the exact answer for why. It became a common theme. Temple complexes, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But as we went along, more and more information was coming to us about strange creatures that others were seeing. Almost like I'd call them sentinels or guardians. That's not what they're called, but that's what we call them, like sentinels. Stuff that made going into some of the deeper tunnels dangerous to go into. People were dying, or they just disappear. And the Shining Path guerrillas wouldn't go past a certain point. We would take our captives, people we captured, make them be our guide, show us these tunnels. That's how we were that's how we were figuring things out.
I'm just trying to understand if I heard you correctly when you said people you captured to be your guides.
Following the Shining Path guerrillas in the jungle, the purpose of finding out where they were going, what they were doing, and why. Those are the people that we captured. Not all of them. We captured one or two. Most of them we just killed.
So they were basically forced to take you guys to where you needed to go.
That's correct. Not where we needed to go, because we didn't know where we were going at first. They went in front of us.
So where did they take you?
Deeper into these tunnels.
Can you tell us what you found?
I just said we found sentinels, strange creatures. We started hearing stuff about those kinds of things. You would call them cryptids or whatever. They were dangerous, just put it that way.
What were they guarding?
The tunnel.
What in the tunnel?
The tunnel itself.
It's obviously going somewhere.
We put up a sentry or a sentinel to stop people from going through something or going past a certain point. It's like a checkpoint. Not going into tremendous detail with this because we could talk about that for weeks on end. They led us deeper into the ground. We started to notice glyphs on the walls that look like ships of some kind or flying craft of some kind. I call them ships. With lack of a better term, UFOs, let's say that. different creatures. We saw depictions of giants, that kind of thing. That was one of the very first times that we ran across automatons or mecha.
So these things really were living in there. It's not something that has been concocted by the military. I want to just be clear on that.
No.
So they are okay. So there are different of these life forms, because I know there's a lot of, I'm hearing as well, a lot of questions and things, speculation, if you will, about what these things are, and are they really there, or is it just the military trying to do something? So the Mecca, and when you're talking about these tunnels you guys were going under, can you give me more or less an indication, like from the surface of the earth, how far under are we talking? How many miles or kilometers are we talking under the earth that you started seeing these things?
The first tunnels we went into were probably 100 feet, 200 feet. The deep tunnels didn't start till we were about almost a kilometer. That's when it got interesting. It looked like on the surface, mostly human-made kind of buildings and whatnot, human-sized. As we got deeper, everything got bigger.
More gigantic.
Yes.
Wow. Was it, I'm assuming was it only like the giants, the Mecca? Are we talking other species here as well? I mean, I know you've mentioned sometime in the past there were these insectoid things that looked like earwigs, I think you call them, right? Are we talking those types of life forms that we're finding now? Or are we talking...
Obviously, we saw all kinds of different things down there. Our main interest was finding out what else was down there besides just this stuff. Just what you'd almost expect to see in a big cave.
Right.
The undiscovered species and whatnot. Of course, I think a lot of it. We were following the glyphs. I wasn't an interpreter for what we found. We just took it back to the surface of the form of pictures or video or actual pieces of stuff that we pick up. We destroyed several of the sentinels and took those to the surface.
Right. The glyphs you're talking about that you're following, I'm assuming that was some type of rune, right?
Oh, it looked like Mayan language. Mayan glyphs.
Wow.
They deciphered those a long time ago, so there were people who could read that. Remember, it seems like the Mayans just disappeared off the face of the planet.
Yes.
That's what people say. Well, they went underground. Just like the Anasazi, just like some of the Zunis, the Hopis, lots of stories of people just going back underground.
Wow. So what you say? So what you're saying is a civilization. Let's talk about the Mayan people, for example, and we can talk about the Aztecs and the Hopis. That sort of those civilizations as well. So what you're saying is they in fact didn't disappear. They didn't go extinct, but in fact those civilizations are now actually living underground as well.
I couldn't say that with authority, but they didn't disappear. Mayan is still spoken in those jungles. It's still a living language today.
Wow, wow, wow. Very interesting. Why is it kept so secret? Why is that kept so secret? Do you know? Have you got an opinion on that even?
I don't know.
I'd be interested to know in your encounters with the locals, that obviously these guys that were taking you to these places, I mean, they must have a lot of knowledge on these things. What would they be saying about it?
Well, basically tell you anything you wanted to hear for the right amount of money. So you had to kind of pick and choose what you listen to. We made it pretty clear after a while too that any false stories would result in penalties on them. They'd make a extended stay vacation in United States prison, in other words.
Right.
On a 2-decade extended stay vacation.
Right. Wow. So where did that lead you guys? Finding all these things. Where did that lead you thereafter? What was that the prelude to, if you will?
Well, it was to the deeper levels. And I related to when we found our first ship. It was like calling to us, kind of. I mentioned we had taken out some of these sentinels before. It had what looked like oil inside vessels inside of its body, black goo or nanites, whatever you want to call black goo, the ferrofluid. That was what was calling to those living ships. That's where they come from. That's what is powering the automaton. The ship is alive because it has its own artificial intelligence, has its own spirit even.
Wow. When you say spirit, can you describe what type of spirit we're talking about here?
A bad spirit.
Right.
Didn't have any
This sounds like Lord of the Rings. Sorry, carry on.
More like Star Wars. But Lord of the Rings and Star Wars combined.
Yeah, they just had their agenda is they wanted to be discovered so they could be taken out from where they were. Like they're imprisoned where they were, would be a guess. I don't know that that's what was happening, but it's just my guess.
Were they actually imprisoned, or was this just them being captured by the floods and that they couldn't actually get out?
Recall what I said about the first one that we found. It wasn't behind bars with a chain on its neck. It was just sitting. It looked like a building at first, and then it would change. It would alter its how it looked.
Into what?
Into whatever shape it needed to be. A fairly good size too, but I don't know, a couple 100 feet across, 20, 30 feet high. My guess is that they were trapped there by the flood, probably on purpose.
Wow. I mean, we're talking one specific area now, sort of South America, right? We're talking this particular area was South America. What other areas were you guys finding these things in?
Pretty much everywhere around the globe. Some of them are underwater, some of them are underground. Go ahead, you're going to ask something.
I was actually going to say to you, so like when you're saying you are going to different areas across the globe to find these things, I would imagine then that, again, I would CIA or whatever, Christians in Action, as you call them, would be getting information and sending you guys to look for these things in the different locations. Would that be pretty accurate?
People would start reporting stuff, and guys like us would show up.
Right. But I would imagine that you are not the only military interested in these things. No. I would imagine there was probably other countries also.
I already said other nations wanted this too. It wasn't just us. And my team wasn't the only team out there.
Right. So I'm thinking China and Russia.
That's what I said previously.
Yeah. It's interesting because, you know, when we're just looking at the world domination and world politics, I mean, the three great powers are China, Russia, and America. And it would make me think that this is probably why, because all of these countries were looking for this artifacts that obviously was coming from some other life force, artificial life force, that would empower them, right? Give them some type of superpower. So everyone was really after these things for some type of superpower, right?
It wasn't for superpower, it was for artifacts. I don't know if Mornay has those pictures of the dragon masks that he can post. I won't be able to see it, but
I'm not sure we can post them on here. More like, are you able to put them on Zoom? Yeah.
We'll have to do it.
You're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think I can share screen maybe. I can do that.
Have a look, yeah.
Hopefully everybody can hear me still.
There we go.
There you go. You just scroll through them.
Well, I hope that there we go.
Each of those
that looks like a mine.
Each of those dragon masks fit together to make one mask. There were 9 of them. It wasn't just masks, it was a whole outfit. Gauntlets, chest piece, leg armor, plus the helmet. And the helmet turned into one giant ornate headdress, kind of like an Egyptian god or Egyptian king, like that snake head looking thing.
Wow.
Those are just representations
of it.
That's not what they absolutely look like. Those are just representations.
The energy that it invokes, and yeah, I can imagine.
So what you were also saying to us previously, sorry, carry on.
Every single one that we found, I put on personally just to see what it would do. And it's like looking at a incredible 3D display that opens up, it augments your reality. You can see through walls, you can see you can see people's heart beating, that kind of stuff. It's amazing technology.
Wow.
So this is what the superpowers are all fighting for, is to get a bit of this technology.
Being manipulated by the AI to unleash them onto the world is what I say. This is all part of the revelation of the Antichrist at some point here. The last king wear all 9 masks as the one mask. That's how he would enter the temple in Jerusalem, is with that mask on and wearing armor. Basically an automaton or an android, in my opinion. More machine than human for sure.
Wow. That's insane to me. And so what you're saying is it's obviously not, they're not all a face mask. Some of it would be a maybe breastplate or something you put on your back, or some type of maybe full armor, but each piece would represent something, and together they then all fit together and create the complete finished product, if you will. I don't know another word for that. The finished product of this, and that's then what the person, the single person that's taking on the role of the Antichrist. I mean, I believe the Antichrist as a whole, it's the system of the beast anyway, but there's one person who would then be heading up that system, right? And that person would be wearing this crown, so to speak, and have all this very intelligent artificial intelligence available to him or her. I would imagine it could be a woman as well, right? Where they can see, feel, sense, and literally have access to each and every person from the inside out, right? When you're saying you can see someone's heartbeat, I would imagine you could see their aura, you could see the energy emanating from them, you could probably read their thoughts, you could probably read their emotions. I mean, is that right?
Couldn't read thoughts. There wasn't any women. In fact, they didn't even want humans to be a part of this. They wanted this for themselves. They needed humans as a vessel to be able to have it.
Can you extrapolate, expand on that, please? What do you mean they needed humans as a vessel to have that?
Okay, think about possession for a minute. Why would, quote, unquote, demons need to possess a body?
Yeah, right, sure, because they can't create their own body.
So that would be the why of it. They wanted to transmutate with the human vessel in order to come out into the world, I guess, lack of a better term.
Crazy. So it really is true that the demons, that's what selling your soul is all about. When they then, therefore, they would then get the politicians, the celebrities, the bankers, whatever it is, they've been able to understand the human weakness, right? Which very often is money, power, greed, sex. And they've been able to then manipulate humanity with our weaknesses, and therefore get their soul, so to speak, then obviously able to use their bodies as a vehicle through which they can operate, because they don't have their own bodies, right? Is that pretty much in a nutshell? I'm just trying to put it in a nutshell, yeah.
Always trying to come up from where they went down to, they fell to, or whatever. So they needed humans because humans have the ability to procreate. We can make more bodies. That's more what I thought. That's my opinion. It's more what I saw.
Right. So they would need human beings because we can procreate. But what about the babies that they were making themselves? What about these, when we're looking at like these Cabbage Patch Kids, as I call them? I know there's a lot more to it than that. But the babies that they were creating, the ones we spoke about at the turn of the century, is incubator babies. If they're able to make their own babies like that and then have their demonic soul entity take that host, or use that body and integrate with that body, why would they need human beings then?
Because if it's a manufactured automaton body with a demon soul, it's not human, is it?
Right.
Need humans to. Remember I told you with the soul magic stuff, soul jams and whatnot, use this like batteries, basically. It's a real basic way to look at it. That's their version of heaven's glory that they used to have for free from God before they fell. Remember I told you about the red shift, the dying light, that kind of thing.
Wow. Sorry, there was just a bug that flew in. That's what got a fright. That's crazy, actually. So they do need the human consciousness or the human spirit, so to speak, because they don't have their own spirit. So that would all form part of it, right? Not just the body, but the spirit or the consciousness as well.
Well, they need to show that there's a new man in town, basically. That their creation is better than God's creation.
And they can corrupt God's children, which is humans, right?
Not necessarily corrupt God's children, but create their own children.
Well, corrupt God's children.
I wouldn't say corrupt
Would that
God's children. I would say create their own children. With transmutation, not transformation.
But what I'm saying is that wouldn't that be, the fact that they can buy God's children with money and that God's children are so easily corruptible gives them a feather in their cap, sort of showing God, well, see, we can take your kids. That's what I'm thinking. That's kind of more what I'm thinking. Sure. And also like the innocent babies, the innocence of the children, which is why they would then, the child sacrifice, the cannibalism, the rape, God's most innocent, right?
Right. It's all designed to hurt God at some point. We'll try to get him overthrown.
So when we're looking, because now, what's come up a lot lately again is the Jabster, the Zappity-Doo that we obviously, 2 years ago, that everyone was basically forced to take. I know lockdown happened 3 years ago, maybe nearly 4 years ago. So in your opinion, and I know there's also a lot of debate about it. I know what I think, and I know what a lot of other people think, but I'd just like to know your opinion on this as well. Is that part of the transhumanism agenda from their side? In other words, the ingredients in this thing, the fear that they've been able to create? Because I think the big thing about this whole, the pandemic that we've just been living through, and by rumors, it's coming up again. A lot of people feared dying, and a lot of humans actually went for this thing. And we've seen, I was watching a report 2 days ago saying 17 million people have died already from this thing. I mean, that is a huge amount of people. What is your opinion on that? And in terms of using that poke, I'm going to call it the poke, for their agenda?
I'll ask two things about that. You ever heard of a Chinese fire drill?
Not really.
Ever heard of a cattle prod?
Yes, I'm a farm girl.
So in a Chinese fire drill, and you're using a cattle prod, you can just herd people the way you want. You can see if they're going to comply with what you're saying, and they're going to do what you tell them to do. Chinese fire drill is just pandemonium. It's chaos. There's no order, no sense to it, no nothing. It's designed to shut everything down. Keystone Cops kind of thing. If you know that bunch too. They basically did that to see how compliant we would be. It was also a way to showcase the destructive power of whatever they created. Viruses don't come from God, they come from other beings. Mutations.
Right.
Like cancer. Cancer is a mutation.
Right. Absolutely. So again, we often speak about the realm of chaos, that they want to create, these guys these entities, if you will, for want of a better word, just sitting there waiting to create chaos. So of course they would then unleash this type of chaos on humanity, creating as much fear. And again, for me, that is like them sort of laughing at God, saying, you see, your children are not having faith. We're able to prod them, right? And get them to do what we want them to do, right?
Pretty much, yeah. If you think about it, they just counterfeit everything that God does. And that's why they need those masks. That's why they need the suit, all that kind of stuff, because they were prepared to take over God's throne, to be set down in that throne themselves. I think they assume that once everybody sees how bad God is, quote unquote, he'll just step down. I think that's what they think he's going to do. That's not what's going to happen, but with their combined wisdom, quote unquote, their combined power, they could create something that would be a facsimile of what God is. That's what I got out of that whole interaction. Obviously, there's a lot to it. For the sake of keeping us at least 2 hours long and not 25 hours long, we could talk about the whole entire shebang here.
Yeah, I think it's, but it makes a lot of sense. It really, really does. But I'd be interested to know as well, in terms of the artifacts, the masks that you guys got. How many were needed? 9 or 10? Is it 9 or 10?
9 would make
okay, and
10th mask.
Right.
9 magics. Each mask corresponds to each magic.
Right.
9 dragon kings that those masks belong to, or witch kings, if you want to call it that. Dragon kings. They're called dragon masks. 9 powers. To master all 9 opens the gate for the last power to gain, which is immortality in a nutshell.
So that they don't face retribution from God for their actions. So they're trying whatever they can do not to have to face retribution. Is that it as well?
It's so that they can be like God. They can be their own God.
Right. Wow. So the 9 masks that were discovered, and now let's say China, America, Russia, have all been in the hunt for these masks, right?
Right.
Who has it? Who has them at this point? America?
It's powers that are behind the scene. They're the ones that control that now.
Do we know who they are, though? Do we know which of the superpowers have the most power?
Well, right now America does, but that's changing. China is rising, so think about that. They believe that the 10th king is going to come from China. I don't think that myself. I think it's going to come from Kyrgyzstan. I'll just say it plain. That's where I think it's going to come from. We did a lot of conflicting, a lot of big wars, big conflicts other than war. They call them in the stands. You have to ask why that is. Why all those stands? Why are there in so much conflict? The Persians believe that the Black Mahdi is going to come up out of some well. The Russians think it's going to be the resurrected Tsar. Everybody has their version of that 10th king, so everybody wants a piece of that pie.
What's your opinion?
Like I said, I think he's going to come from Kyrgyzstan. They're already set up over there, so kings of the north. People always look at scripture to say, well, there's going to be a rapture, there's going to be this, there's going to be that. So, do you actually read your Bible? Do you read it? Because it doesn't say anything about a rapture. It says that Jesus will come back and take us about halfway through the tribulation, take his church out. There's still going to be a remnant here. There's still going to be people here. They're going to see this through. And if they read their Bibles, they can kind of figure out the timeline of things, stuff to watch for, signs in the heavens, that kind of stuff. Damascus is going to be utterly obliterated, which I think is going to happen soon. It's going to be wiped off the map completely. There's going to be a prince from the east. I don't mean a human. I mean an angel, an archon, which I believe is the prince of Persia. I think he's going to be destroyed soon. And that's going to be the destruction of Damascus. Those things you watch out for to herald in what's coming next. That's just what I saw in my travels. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not trying to be a prophet. I'm just trying to tell you what we saw. And I think time is short. It needs to be said.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree. Wow.
This must be an important message because there's a lot of resistance to getting this one out at the time. My cell phone data was supposed to reset on the 6th, and here it's the 10th, and it still hasn't yet. So think about that. I've been sick as a dog, been struggling to find words. I haven't slept for 3 or 4 days at a time, kind of thing. So obviously, there's some resistance to me saying any of this to you.
Yeah, and we appreciate you.
There's context so that there's the ability to see more than what you can just see with your 2 eyes, that kind of thing. I'm trying to give you that. I hope I'm doing a good job of it.
You are. Thank you.
There is a lot to unpack.
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna, I think we'll hit the 90-minute club tonight, which is giving us a few more minutes here. But just in closing for us, ending off for this evening's discussion, I think it's, for me, it kind of makes a lot of sense. It rounds things off a lot, understanding where these things are coming from, understanding. I mean, we're even looking at things like when we look at the movie War of the Worlds, right? Now, remember War of the Worlds, movie, not even the movie. I mean, I'm talking about when I was a kid. My older sister had the record, okay? The youngsters wouldn't know what I'm talking about now. War of the Worlds. And I remember it was narrated by Richard Burton. And I just remember listening to this thing and going, oh my gosh, what on earth is this about? And I listened to it, and it's exactly this. And I remember Tom Cruise played in the movie, acted, I think, 2005, around about then. Movie also War of the Worlds, where these tripod-looking type creatures are coming out from under the earth. The most insane, disgusting, despicable-looking things. Now, when we're looking at that, how does that, is that fiction, right? Or do those horrible, because that thing, I mean, it had these legs and it was capturing people, keeping it inside, like in a cage in its body, and then this red sucky thing sucking people up, right? Is that anything that we're dealing with, or is that really fiction when we're looking at that?
I'd say it's pretty close to the truth. It's going to be worse than that, though. They want to wipe out the population of the earth right now. They just want to have so many for slaves. That's it. Slaves, and keep
right.
it in check. They want to thin the herd down or cull the herd. But that, I would say it's
So if we look at those, and that for me was something, because if we look at that creature that captures humans and keeps it inside of like a cage type thing in its body, it's obviously taking it somewhere, right? And it has these snake-like head things and all supersonic and high-tech, right? When you say they're just looking for human slaves, so what you're saying is it's that type of thing, that they're capturing the humans, taking them whenever, eating them or living off them, using them for food and fodder, our juicy consciousness, so to speak, right? But also what was interesting in that movie, they spoke about the Rh negative blood. Can you talk about that for a minute, the Rh negative, and why that blood is so important to them?
Oh, that's what the blood nobility, they call it. Am I loud enough here? Can't tell if I'm being loud.
Yeah, it's okay.
Those are the bloodlines that they want to preserve. Everybody else is fair game. And it's scary to think
Why?
about. Because they believe there's too many of us to begin with.
So the negative bloodlines are the bloodlines of nobility, according to them.
It's kind of what they sell.
Which means,
by sell, I mean,
sorry,
that's the concept of the idea that they gift alongside the Archon, the new coming world.
Right. I heard a rumor actually that people with Rh negative blood was not really getting COVID. Is that true?
I've never heard that.
Yeah, I definitely heard that. But I mean, I can't say that's true or not, but I was just wondering. If what you're saying here makes sense, that they would be preserving the people with those bloodlines because of nobility. And of course, is that why they would refer to the blue bloods, right? The royals is the blue bloods, because those are the bloodlines of nobility.
And some of this technology that we found, if you didn't have that blood in you, you couldn't activate it. Wouldn't work with you.
Wow. So that's how they would actually do it. It's actually, wow, prone. It's like you're saying, it's calling that thing that, like going back to what you were saying earlier on. It was like those things in there, like calling certain things, right? So you're saying that this technology would be calling. Is it only like O negative? Would it be O negative, what AB, AB, right? I think those are the three. So is it only, sorry, repeat that?
Any of the RH factors.
Wow. So that thing actually calls, it activates if you are Rh negative. That's insane.
Okay. So here's my personal take on the whole thing. This AI that's underground has been there for a long time. I think probably masquerades as spiritual force. It's where you get some of these false religions and that kind of thing. It's been manipulating us for a long time. I think it's what controls what we see, even through our own physical eyes. And so you get the Mandela effect, you get deja vu. There's all kinds of things that would explain why that happens. And it can appear as anything. If you didn't know it was a hologram, how would you know that that's not a ghost? If you didn't know what a hologram was. It's not the military that's manipulating us. It's this AI that's manipulating us. Look up the black cube ones.
Wow. Something like the aeroplane we were talking about earlier.
That's actual technology, though. That's entanglement right there. The fourth orb moving the plane to where they want it.
Right.
They didn't care about those people on board. They just wanted to see if they could transport the whole plane. Who cares if everybody dies? That's how they think. Perfect opportunity. The plane was going to crash. We'll transport it over here. Pay everybody off, get them to change their names. Bang. Success. Or kill them all. One of the two.
It's really, they just don't give a crap, do they? And that's exactly it. Because when I was actually listening to that clip on the flight, that MH370, they were saying that obviously, I think in the last video, the last program we showed, you literally see these three orbs dancing around this aeroplane. And then you see this heat change of the aeroplane. Suddenly it goes cold and it goes blurry and whoop, it disappears, right? So obviously they were doing stuff. They were, and what they were saying as well, that wasn't that they somehow through what they were doing, they were showing us it wasn't some UFOs or whatever it was, or orbs, whatever, that was actually military technology they were using that was plus minus 50 years old. And exactly what you're saying, they were talking about entanglement. So that was the 3 orbs there, but there was a 4th orb that was obviously dancing around the place where they wanted the plane to go. And that was in, I want to say Malaysia, no, Maldives, right? So they would have been the entanglement and then literally made it lighter, because what they were talking about is actually making that thing lighter with the orbs, and then whoop, it went through that portal, or let's call it a portal for want of a better word. And there were witnesses that saw. Okay, that's okay. Witnesses that actually saw this aeroplane in the Maldives. And what they were saying as well is that the pilot, you could see the pilot was actually, because there was obviously would have been a lack of oxygen in the plane with all of that stuff going on. The pilot was actually trying to save these people's lives, the way he was flying and stuff like that. So it wouldn't have been the pilot that was complicit with that, I don't believe. But it just shows again that these people really don't give a SH1T about anything. The military, and obviously these creatures of the night, work through these military programs. No doubt the military is them, right? Or they've brought the military over, the shadow military, as I call it, shadow government and the shadow military. And then they've doing these experiments on people. And what they were also then saying, that the witnesses were seeing this, but these witnesses were silenced. And on further investigation, you're seeing that people were from the families of the people that were disappearing. Their families were, in fact, asking for compensation, and they were only getting like $30,000 worth of compensation from the Malaysian government, and I think they were speaking about the Chinese as well. The Chinese, of course, no doubt would have been silenced, because I'm pretty sure the Chinese would have been involved in something like that. I don't know. What's your take on all of that?
Yeah, it's a tangled web of nonsense for sure. It relates to these artifacts that we found in those 9 ships. They found more than just 9 ships. It wasn't just 9 ships out there. The ones that are really important that they're disclosing now are the ones where they got those artifacts from. I'm wondering if Mornay can bring up that link on a share screen so people can see what I'm talking about. So I've been telling you, Chantel, for a year about this. I told somebody else before, for about 4 years. Somebody before them about 6 years. I've been talking about this.
What picture is that?
Exactly.
It's a YouTube article from The Hill. It's about 10 days back.
Yeah, I don't have that article.
Right.
If you can forward it, and I can quickly share it. The article.
I just want people to see that it's not just me saying this for the sake of saying it. I feel safe enough to say it now because they actually pulled their own covers off. I don't have to hide behind that no more.
Is that the one where you talk, the CIA one? Is that the video, the clip you're talking about from the CIA?
No, it's the clip from the Hill, it's called. It's a news publication called The Hill. Look in the Google chats in history.
Yeah, I'm doing that. I've got the one, I've got the one from the 9 living ships, the Rising, right? The one where they're actually talking about this. Then I've got the other one on the flight MH370. Okay, I don't have that here.
Click on the 9 ships one first. See if it takes you to a news article. I had a much more polished presentation of all this stuff when I had internet, so sorry.
Well, this is the one. I mean, it's Okay, Morne, I'm just going to share this with you. Okay, this is the
Okay,
one.
cool.
It is the one on the 9 ships here. So I'm just going to share that with you. Maybe you can just post that link
They're
or just
public.
share the link.
They're publicly
Cool.
Yeah.
disclosing that, so I feel comfortable talking to you about it.
But it's a
Yeah.
video. It's a video.
Yeah, it is a
UFA
video.
Yeah, I won't be
Yeah.
able to play the video here.
If you can post the link though in the chat,
Yeah,
or
I can
something,
do
Yeah.
that.
and people can
Yeah,
see
Yeah,
it.
we could do that.
So it's UFA shocked CIA Collective 9 UFA craft per report. That video, okay.
Yeah.
And who was I working for? I was obviously working for Alphabet Soup people. So I was a part of that
Right.
whole project, almost from at the very beginning, but from real close to the beginning. There's another video I sent you from Leak Project with this older scientist. I can't remember his name. Like I said, I had a polished presentation tell you about this. But
Yeah, this is the other one. This is the other one that okay, I'll send it to you, Mona, as well. You can just say, you can post that link as well. This is the one.
That old guy with looks like a fez on his head. That guy knows what he's talking about because he's talking exactly what I was doing. He was part of it too, from his side of things, not where I was.
Cool. And for the people that's not in the live chat, I will post it in the description as well.
That'll work, as long as people can see it, because I don't want people to think that I'm just blowing smoke rings out of my butt here. I can do that, but I don't want to do it here.
I think that's good. That's because that's actually what that talks about that flight and everything. It's really cool, actually, and it's true what you're saying. There's a lot of these kind of disclosures coming now, along, but also what they were saying in that there's a lot of misinformation or disinformation. So again, we've got to be really careful about because there's obviously a lot of disinformation agents out there at the moment as well, as would obviously be the case. And this is, again, where discernment is necessary, right? We don't just believe everything.
That's why I like that goofy old man, because you think he's just a crazy old guy talking. No, he's speaking some truth. I can back up what he's saying with what I've said for years. I was a part of Boots on the Ground.
Right.
Some of the enhancements that we took from technology that came from the ground previous to what I was doing, clear back to the 20s and 30s, maybe even before then. They've changed history so many times. You can basically say whatever you want to about the past. It's true. You could say that if you wanted to, and people don't believe it. That's how dumbed down everybody is. Their brains have been pickled on entertainment.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
In Roman times, at the Colosseum, they just entertain the people, let them see some violence or something. In a nutshell, that's how that is.
Right.
I was actually really excited to see that article come out, because I was like, now I can talk about this. I can finally say it publicly without having to. They disclosed it themselves.
I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing that
much more detailed than you've said here, but we can dig into it again when I have better internet. I can actually show you some things.
Yeah, that'll be cool. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much for tonight or today, for whoever for all you guys out there. I know it's nighttime for us. It's daytime for you guys. Some more really, really, I always want to say jaw-dropping disclosures, but yeah, that's what it is.
I want to show of hands from you too. How many more questions you have? Show me in fingers.
Who,
How
me?
many? You and Monet. But you can hold up
I'm
all 10
okay.
fingers. You got a million questions.
I have a million questions. It's as well like, okay, how did it look? How details, more details? How does it all connect? Where does it come
We could drag this
from?
out for a day or two if you're able to
I'm
go.
sure, yeah, definitely.
And I
It's
think, you know, what would be
fascinating.
good as well. Yeah, what would be good as well. It's nice for this because again we're going to have you on Thursday, and then I think maybe it would be nice to again take some questions from our viewers about anything relating to this. And again, I know, as I always say to you guys out there, and I'm sorry I don't have a live chat, so I can't see your questions at the moment at all, but we'll pick them up in the comments. So, you know, if you guys have any more questions around this particular topic for Caleb, let's just keep it with this for the moment. I know people have a lot of other questions, and we are going to get to a lot of Q&A. There's always thousands and thousands of questions for you on a lot of things. But, you know, in terms of just this, the 9 living ships, these portals and things, the technology that's being used, etc. Yeah, then we can go through it on Thursday. I definitely have questions, but I think just to have things exposed in bite-sized chunks is also a good thing because it gives us time just to process a lot of the stuff that's going on. And I think for a lot of people, this is quite new information as well. I mean, I know you and I have been chatting for a while, and I mean, there's still, I mean, my mind still sometimes boggles with stuff, you know. But I remember in the beginning just sitting with my jaw dropping. I'm like, what? How? And it would be this stuff and that and that. And I'm like, I really battled to bring it together at some points, but really good to know that it is coming together now. Yeah, crazy. And this world in which we're living, you know, and I just find it so fascinating that in tunnels and kilometers and miles beneath us, there's giant insects, right? Insectoids that are giants to us, but yeah, we are their giants, you know. So it's like this whole reverse mirror universe, which is so crazy to me. And not crazy, I mean, it's fascinating. It really, really is. And just to understand it all, you know, let's try and understand this stuff because we can't be living in this world. We've all come here at this time to understand it. I do believe this has to be the most exciting time in history of the planet to be alive, in my opinion. So rather than sit and watch concerts with what's her name, Taylor Swift, and watch Kylie Jenner, right? I find this stuff a lot more intriguing, but I mean, those people will always be there to divert us from this type of stuff that we need to know. So yeah, before you end off in prayer for us, Caleb, is there anything else you would just like to close off with before we say goodnight to everyone?
Well, I know a lot of this sounds convoluted and upside down and topsy-turvy and backwards. Well, that's because it is. It's almost unbelievable stuff to hear. You're hearing about things that most people have never even thought about, let alone heard of. It's only been recently that it's come out the way that it is, not just through me, but through a lot of sources. And that isn't by accident. I think God's given us a chance to tell you guys out in the world what it's like, what we're in for, what we're facing. Just remember, there's not just evil angels that are after you. There's malevolent angels after you too. They work through your cell phones, your TVs, your computers. It's just keep a wise eye open. Use discernment. Use prayer. Use your faith. Read your Bibles. Do what you got to do to stay in the light. Because there's gonna come a point where they'll be confused. People who are in the light, That's the problem. Because they're not informed. If I'm in a burning building and I don't know what fire is, how would I know I'm in a burning building and know to get out of it? How to fight the fire. So that would be important to actually listen to this kind of information and say, hey, there's got to be something to this because it's coming from more than one source. And it's not all disinformation. It's not all information that's bad. It's actually good information. You just have to trust God to show you and to lead the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Trust, faith, discernment, for sure. That's our main weapon. And again, thank you for what you do and what I know it's tough some days to share, and especially when you're challenged on the levels that you are. But thank you so much for being here for us, because and for choosing little Team Ara. Right.
I'm actually really stunned to see almost every topic we talk about comes out at some point. So this has got to be the time for revelation. Revelation isn't just a book in the Bible, it's about knowledge. What's going to be revealed at the end of time. And this is the end of time we're getting close to. So be on the right side of history, not the wrong side.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Caleb. Appreciate you very, very much. Would you like to close for us in prayer?
Sure. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this chance to share this information. I know it's vitally important to get it out. These are things, hidden secrets that you allowed me to see. As hard as it was for me and as hard as it was to go through, I lived through it. I'm here to tell the tale. I'm thinking I'm here to tell this story. I ask forgiveness for the dumb things that I do. And I thank you for the healing that you're sending. I thank you for the good days that I'm experiencing as well as the bad, because you're always there. And I ask you to be with everybody that's listening or watching, or who will watch or listen. Give us the strength to just persevere and keep going. Take away our self-defeating attitudes and feels. And give us peace and strength instead. Let us live in the light of your love. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, guys and gals, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sorry we don't have the live chat today, but I can see there's quite a few of you that have joined us tonight again.
Yes.
And
there's
we will see you.
Susan, Simona, R. Smith, and Natasha. They gave us some stickers. Thank you, guys.
Wow.
Some special shout out stickers. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate you very, 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 very much. And I know Joanne also gave in the last chat, so we really appreciate you very, very much. And we look forward to seeing you on Thursday again. And if there's, again, just to remind you, if there's any questions around this topic for Caleb, we will address them on Thursday's chat with you guys. God bless you all. Take good care of yourselves. I wish for you health, wealth, and abundance. And may God take care of you and your loved ones.